I moved to Portland on a Wednesday. It rained the whole way there, the kind of rain that doesn't fall hard but never really stops. It blurred the edges of things, turned streets into mirrors, and made the whole city look like a watercolor painting someone left out too long. My car was a mess, half my life packed into boxes labeled things like photos, books, stuff I might need someday. The air smelled like cold coffee, and the vanilla candle that had spilled on the floor last night when I took a corner too fast told myself this was a new beginning. A restart. A clean page. But deep down, I knew I hadn't really left my past behind. I'd just put it in the trunk with everything else I couldn't throw away. The city felt both alive and asleep at the same time. People walked with purpose, umbrellas in hand, but there was something unhurried about them. It felt safe. Anonymous. And after everything that happened back in Seattle, the breakup, the job that fell apart, the feeling that my whole life had cracked, anonymity sounded perfect. Found a small apartment above a bakery on Hawthorne Boulevard. The walls were thin, and the smell of bread woke me up every morning. The landlady, Mrs. Grant, was a sweet woman in her 70s who wore oversized glasses and smelled like cinnamon. She told me, "You'll fall in love here, one way or another. Everyone does." I laughed politely, thinking she said that to every tenant. I didn't believe her, not then. 3 days after moving in, I went to a cafe called Velvet Finch, a quiet place with fogged windows and plants hanging in mismatched pots. I went there to edit photos, freelance work for a small magazine, but mostly I went there to not feel alone. When I saw him, was kneeling by the front door, a toolkit open beside him, fixing the hinges. He wore a faded gray hoodie under a work jacket, his hair slightly damp from the rain. His name tag said August, written in neat black letters. When he looked up, his eyes were the color of the sky right before it rains, gray-blue, soft but steady. "You look like you're trying to photograph the weather," he said. I realized I'd been holding my camera, pointed toward the window. "Maybe I am," I said, smiling. "It's more interesting than people sometimes." "Depends on the person," he replied, half smiling like he knew something I didn't. He stood, wiped his hands on a rag, and offered his hand. "August." "Haley," I said, shaking it. His hand was warm, calloused. The kind of warmth that stays with you longer than it should. It's how it started, quietly, like rain tapping against glass. August came by the cafe almost every week. He worked for a local renovation company, mostly restoring old houses and fixing up small businesses. Every time I saw him, he smelled faintly of sawdust and cedar, and there was always a pencil behind his ear. He started talking, at first just small things. Weather. Coffee. The city. He told me he liked mornings, the kind before the world wakes up. He said that's when Portland feels honest. I told him I liked photographing people when they didn't know they were being seen. "You can catch the truth in them that way," I said. "Maybe that's why people are scared of cameras," he replied, smiling softly. "They don't want their truth caught." There was something about him, a steadiness, a quiet strength I hadn't felt in anyone for a long time. One day, when the cafe was closing, I saw him still working outside in the drizzle. I brought him a cup of coffee. "You'll catch a cold," I said, handing it to him. He smiled. "Then I'll have an excuse to stay home." Isn't that what normal people do on weekends anyway? I'm not sure I've ever been normal. I laughed, and he looked at me, not in a way that makes you shy, but in a way that makes you feel seen. That night, I dreamed of rain and wood and warmth. Weeks passed, and somehow, August became part of my days. Like the smell of the bakery downstairs or the rain outside my window. He invited me one Saturday to see a house he was restoring. "You'd like it," he said. "It's old but still standing, like it has stories to tell." The place was a pale yellow Victorian on Maple Street. Half the floorboards were missing, the windows dusty, but the bones of it were beautiful. He showed me the details, the carved stair railings, the stained glass window in the hallway. He talked about the house like it was alive. "This one belonged to a couple in the 1920s, he said. She was a painter. He was a writer. They never finished the attic studio. I'm restoring it for whoever moves in next." "You believe in that? Restoring things for the next story?" I asked. He looked at me, serious now. I think everything deserves a second chance. Something in my chest tightened, because I wasn't sure I believed that anymore, he noticed. You don't think so? I hesitated. I used to. But some things break too deep. He shook his head slightly. Maybe. But that's what makes them worth fixing. It was such a simple sentence, but it stayed with me. That night, I sat in my apartment, scrolling through old photos, the ones of my ex, of our life that used to feel safe and predictable. We'd built a future that didn't happen. I'd been holding on to what was gone, but August's words replayed in my head, everything deserves a second chance. Maybe that included me. I started taking photos again, not for clients, but for myself. The city, the rain, the little pieces of life that felt real, and somehow, August started showing up in them. A reflection in a puddle. A shadow on a wall. The blur of a man walking away in the drizzle. When I showed him the photos one evening, he smiled. You make ordinary things look like they matter. They do matter, I said quietly. That's the point. One night in February, the storm hit, hard rain, howling wind, power outages all across the block. The bakery downstairs was dark, the street empty. I was editing photos by candlelight when I heard a knock on my door. It was August, soaked to the bone, holding a flashlight. You okay? He asked. Mrs. Grant said your power's out. I'm fine, I said, trying not to stare at the rain dripping from his hair. He stepped inside, shaking off his jacket. I've got a generator in the truck. Want me to hook it up? Before I could answer, thunder cracked so loud it rattled the windows. I jumped. He smiled gently. Maybe I'll stay a bit, just in case. We sat on the floor, wrapped in blankets, a single candle flickering between us. We talked about everything, where we grew up, what we lost, what we still hoped for. He told me his father had been a carpenter, too, died when he was 16. I think that's why I fix things, he said. Because I couldn't fix that. I told him about the breakup, about how leaving Seattle felt like running away from my own mistakes. You didn't run, he said. You started over. There's a difference. There was a silence then, a comfortable one. He looked at me like he wanted to say something else, but instead he reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, and whispered, You deserve a soft place to land. That was the moment I knew I was falling for him. The weeks after the storm were strange. We were closer now, texting every day, meeting for coffee, sharing small pieces of our lives, but there was a hesitation. Like both of us were scared to cross a line we couldn't uncross. One night, he invited me to a small art show downtown. You might like it, he said. It's all local photographers. The gallery smelled like rain and old brick. I walked from photo to photo, and then I stopped, because there, on the far wall, was one of my photos, the puddle reflection. The one with the blurred figure walking away. I turned to August, surprised. How? I sent it in, he admitted. They were looking for local artists. I thought people should see the way you see the world. I didn't know whether to be mad or touched. You should have told me. He smiled softly. You'd have said no. He was right, and then, without overthinking it, I kissed him. It was slow, gentle, but full of everything we hadn't said. When we finally pulled away, he whispered, I've wanted to do that since the day you photographed the rain. We started seeing each other, quietly at first, like we were afraid to ruin it. He'd come over with coffee in the mornings, sometimes still in his work clothes, smelling of rain and sawdust. I'd take photos of him fixing little things in my apartment, pretending it was for art, though really, I just wanted to remember him. He didn't talk about forever. We just lived in the now, the smell of coffee, the hum of his truck outside, the sound of rain at night. But happiness has a way of testing you. One evening, I found a letter in my mailbox. It was from my ex. He'd heard I moved. Said he missed me. Said maybe we could talk again. For a moment, the old ache returned, not for him, but for the version of me I used to be. August found me sitting on the steps outside, letter in hand. Old ghosts, he asked quietly. Yeah, I said. Ones I thought I buried. He nodded, sat beside me. You don't owe anyone your past, Haley. I looked at him. Even if part of me still wonders what if? He sighed softly. Then you wonder. But don't let it steal what's real. I leaned against him, feeling his warmth through the cool night air. What if what's real scares me? Then it's probably worth it, he said. Point 10. The choice. The next morning, I burned the letter, not out of anger, but because I didn't need it anymore. I took my camera and went to Maple Street. The yellow house was finished now, glowing in the spring light, new life breathing through old walls. August was there, painting the porch rail. When he saw me, he smiled. Hey, stranger. I took a picture of him, paint-streaked, tired, beautiful. He laughed. You always catch me mid-mess. That's when you're real, I said. I walked up to him, heart pounding. I don't want to keep running. I don't want to keep wondering what if. I want this of you, us, whatever it becomes. He looked at me, silent for a moment, then said softly, then stay. And I did. By summer, the rain slowed. Portland turned green, alive. We spent weekends fixing up the old house together. I took photos of every nail he hammered, every beam he restored. He taught me how to sand wood properly. I taught him how to see light. We're building something neither of us had before, not just a home, but a peace. Point. One evening, as the sun set over the river, he took my hand and said, "You remember what I told you about second chances?" I nodded. He smiled. Turns out, they're real. And I laughed, because for the first time in years, I believed it too. A year later, we moved into that same yellow house. The attic became my studio. The kitchen smelled of coffee and sawdust every time it rained. I still took photos, but now, the reflection in the puddle wasn't of someone leaving. It was of someone staying, because August did, and so did I.